Count 14, we, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled, sworn, find the defendant not guilty as to count 14 of the indictment for murder. And not guilty.
Breaking news right now on 10 TV News at noon. Former Mount Carmel doctor William Husel has been found not guilty of murder. That verdict coming in at around 10 o'clock this morning. As you know, Husel was accused of killing 14 of his patients through overprescribing medications, including fentanyl and other sedatives. The jury found him not guilty on all counts. And just minutes ago, Dr. Husel left the courtroom and rode away in the blue truck you see there. This comes after 6 days of deliberations. The jury was given the case after nearly 7 weeks of testimony. And during that time, jurors heard from 54 witnesses. They were given the option of choosing murder or a lesser charge of attempted murder. Ultimately, jurors found Dr. Husel not guilty on all 14 counts. We've been waiting for a news conference, and we will have that. Bennett Haverly's been in the courtroom right from the start, and he joins us now. Bennett.
You had faith this whole time.
Tracy, we're talking to Dr. Husel's attorney, Diamond Ashy. Let's listen in.
Otherwise, I will say, outside of what a moment it is for Dr. William Husel, it's a moment for patient care across the country, for doctors and nurses that go every day to the ICU that are treating these patients, that were really, while this trial was going on and this case was pending, were fearful that this case and a verdict of guilty could impact how they practice medicine, and how they practice medicine could have negatively impacted comfort care for all of our loved ones, whether they're 80 or 60 or 30, or we heard about all the patients in this case. They spanned all those ages. So it's a big moment for the healthcare in our country.
Now, you were standing there right next to him, right there in that moment. What was that moment like, especially because this has been such a long haul in a lot of ways to get here?
I mean, it was a moment that's, can't put words on it. It was, I heard the first not guilty, and I knew that there was 14. So it was an exercise in patience, and my heart rate continued to increase as the counts continued to increase. But I cannot, my tears were, I cannot be any happier for William, his wife, his young children, and really just for patient care. I say this, I lost my father 1.5 years ago, and through a very similar situation, and it's important that people can die with peace and dignity. It's incredibly important, and if anyone hasn't experienced that moment with a loved one, they likely will someday, and when they do, they'll understand.
Diane, throughout this, you've said that this belongs in civil court, that this doesn't belong in criminal court. It's one thing to disagree with a doctor's practice. It's another to say that he's criminally culpable for something. Do you believe that was really the crux here?
Yeah, this case never did belong here. It is a civil case, which is a different burden of proof and different measures that they can discuss over there. But for me, this case was about intent. Did William Husel ever intend to kill any of his patients? Not just these 14, but anyone that he ever treated. And I believe the jury clearly spoke to that, and so did the evidence that, he did all these life-saving measures, whether it was CPR or giving, intubating patients, that certainly his last effort was never with the intent to kill or hasten anyone's death. His intent was to provide comfort care. And I want to say, this jury, I just had the fortune to speak with them, and what an amazing group of individuals, and the time and attention and effort they took to this case. It's incredible. And the case deserved that, but what an awesome testament to our criminal justice system that it worked. It worked.
Did they give you an indication of what was it that tipped the balance in your favor, in your client's favor?
It's as we thought. It's the intent. Yeah.
Diane, I saw Dr. Husel wipe tears from his eyes as this verdict was being read. What has he said to you over the last couple of hours since he heard not guilty on all 14 counts, and how is he doing this afternoon?
He said, I asked him what he was going to do today and tonight, and he said his first stop is going to be his church. I will tell you, though, as we sat at counsel table waiting for the verdict, I was very nervous, and I'm not a person that experiences nervousness much. But I was really nervous as I sat there, and he just literally turned to me and said how much he's grateful for me and for Jose, and that he wouldn't have had a different team by his side. And I have to tell you, most individuals that we represent in this work aren't always appreciative because of a number of circumstances. And every day, William has led the day by saying how much he appreciates us, and no one else he would rather have in this with than us.
How could you describe the last 3+ years for him?
No words to that, right? I hope that right now William is starting to get his life back. And truly, like, my tears of joy were for William, and had nothing to do with me or Jose or the team or even what a win means professionally. It is what a day for William Husel that he can start to get his life back. And you know what? Every day during these deliberations, he's had to say goodbye to his daughters, because of course we had to advise him if it was a guilty verdict, he'd likely be taken in custody. And the fact that he's had to do that all of these days, and tonight he can go home, and tomorrow he wakes up and there is no goodbye, it's an incredible thing. It's an incredible thing.
Does he plan to practice medicine again?
You know, that's for a different day. I think today is go to church. I told him to be with all of his family tonight. He has an amazing, supportive, huge family. And, you know, just have some joy. I don't think he's allowed himself any joy for 3 years. And I think you see that. And today I saw him smile for the first time since I've known him, so it was pretty fantastic.
You haven't seen that?
No.
Any other message to the community that's been watching this for so many years? And a lot of them have questions about Mount Carmel and all of the players involved in this.
I think this case is just really about what it looks like when the system works. This jury was incredible. What a task we asked our jurors to sit since February 2nd, right? To sit and deal with a case and listen to a case that is this dense. Times it was not exciting, let's all be honest, right? There was a lot of expert testimony and a lot of repetitive testimony, some emotional testimony, but again, a lot of repetitive testimony, and they hung in there. And I gotta tell you, leaving that jury room right now, it is amazing. The visuals and all the things, I won't go into it, the time and attention they gave to this case. It's like, why as a defense attorney, or I would hope a prosecutor, what we want is we want the system to work. And it did, and it's a glorious thing. And I'm so grateful for this jury, so grateful.
Certainly, you've talked to Jose as well. What was your first message to him? What did he say back to you?
Well, it had some swear words in it, so. But you know, it's like a good marriage. You know, you have those moments where you love each other, and you have those moments where you want to divorce one another, and that's what a good trial is. And we've certainly had those moments. But you know, I respect him so much, and I know he feels the same about me. And we did together. It's a team win. And I was glad he led the press conference with that. It was all of our team, and we all brought something different to the table, which I think made a really great presentation of the case. And you know, I'm eternally grateful for everyone on the team, including Jose.
Has the weight of an acquittal sunk in with Dr. William Husel?
Well, I hope every minute it will sink in more. That's what I told him. I said, you know, as you leave the courthouse and you're in the car, you know, look at your watch every moment and think, I'm 5 minutes into the rest of my life.
Something I noticed throughout the trial, he had a lot of supporters at times.
Incredible.
I mean, his wife by his side every day. What's the impact on all of those people?
Well, he also has a significant number of nurses, healthcare providers there in court on his behalf. He's just had incredible support, not from just healthcare and his family, but the community as a whole. I will say the community that's reached out to me through emails, our community nationally, really cheering him on and giving him support. So many doctors and nurses have reached out to me to say, please, please win this case, because it could impact me in the ICU. And so, you know, he's very fortunate. And again, I think it goes back, he's so appreciative. He's a very, very, very humble, grateful man. I think it came through the testimony that William's also a really nice person.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much,
Thank you.
Diane.
Thank you, Diane.
Appreciate that.
It was Diane Ashy, defense attorney for Dr. William Husel. And we just learned earlier this morning, obviously, he was acquitted on all 14 counts of murder. This trial has lasted several weeks, and you heard it from Diane. She and the defense team believe that this was not a murder case. It didn't belong in criminal court. It belongs in civil court, where certainly it is continued. The hospital to date has paid out more than $20 million in legal settlements to the families of some of these patients, and there are still several of those cases that are still pending. We're going to have much more on this story coming up throughout the day, online at our website at 10tv.com, and later in our newscasts at 5 and again at 6. Reporting live inside the Franklin County Courthouse, Bennett Haberly, 10 TV News.
All right, Bennett, thank you for that. Right now, the attorney representing the families, the patients of those who died, addressing that not guilty verdict. Let's take a listen.
Adverse impact on our cases. I would simply ask rhetorically, how did that work for O.J. Simpson? As everybody knows, he was acquitted in the criminal trial and then had to take the stand and defend himself in the civil trial, and that ended up with a $35 million verdict against him. Dr. Husel can no longer hide behind his Fifth Amendment assertion of a right against self-incrimination. I fully expected him, frankly, to be acquitted of these charges, and instructed my staff, we had a team meeting last week in anticipation of this, and instructed my staff to issue notices and subpoenas to Dr. Husel to appear for deposition, and he's been noticed for a deposition on May 9th. I expect that deposition to take a week. And Dr. Husel is going to have to defend what he did and explain what he did, and not just sit back at the table and allow his lawyers to stand up and make arguments on his behalf. We call that lawyer talk. The time for lawyer talk is over. We look forward to deposing Dr. Husel, and we will finally be able to answer the question that's been on everybody's minds: what was Dr. Husel thinking? So the other side of that is Dr. Husel was not found innocent. As everybody knows, he was simply acquitted, and the jury found that the state failed to prove its case, to meet its burden beyond a reasonable doubt that he intended to murder patients. Our burden of proof, while this is technical stuff, our burden of proof in the civil cases is substantially different. It's simply, we have to prove our case by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not, and not beyond all reasonable doubt. I suspect we're going to find from talking to jurors, if we ever have the opportunity to talk to any of the criminal jurors, that there were a number of jurors who were quite willing to convict Dr. Husel of murder. I think that's reflected in the fact that deliberations took about a week, and there were apparently some holdout jurors who were not happy with voting for a consensus verdict to acquit him. That's speculation on my part, but I suspect that's what we're going to find out. So we look forward to finally getting our cases to trial, because no fault or reflection on the court system because of COVID. All of these civil cases have been shut down, and the criminal cases take preference. But Dr. Husel is no longer in jeopardy of criminal prosecution, so he has no right to stand on the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination, and so we will be taking his deposition soon, as well as obtaining the complete prosecution criminal file, which has a significant amount of information that we were not able to get in our civil cases, and it will shed further light on what transpired at Mount Carmel for 4 years.
Okay, so you've been listening to a news conference, and that one was held by an attorney for family members of the patients who lost their lives at Mount Carmel. So obviously some emotion there. We will cover more of that and have updates for you online at 10tv.com. And of course, on later editions of 10TV News. You can download our 10TV app and check out the website, 10tv.com. We'll be right back.